for me, I look back at it now and I'm like, that was absolutely absurd. I would not recommend it to a majority of people.
I'm here today with JT Barnett, the man, the legend. You've probably seen him all over your feed. Former professional hockey player, if I recall.
That is correct.
Now the top thinker and mover and doer in the content and creator space. We're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to play, how familiar are you with 36 questions to fall in love?
Is that a We're Not Really Strangers game, the 36 one?
So in the study, they put together these randomly selected pairs of people with questions to help promote both vulnerability. I'm sharing, I'm putting myself something out there, and reciprocity. I'm hoping that you'll share something back. And at the end of the study, they found many of these pairs of people became friends, and one pair actually ended up dating and getting married.
Cool.
So stakes are high, JT.
Let's fall in love, bro.
Yeah, yo.
I'm excited.
I'm already feeling some of it, but I want to
Cool.
deepen, get it more.
Cool.
So the way this works is we're going to go through 3 levels of questions. We're going to take turns pulling questions out, asking them, answering them. These are really just meant as prompts for a more personal convo and for your followers and viewers to get to know an even deeper side of you.
Sick. I love it. I'm stoked.
So the way we'll start it initially, we're going to do some intimate eye contact. Okay. Believe it or not, this is part of the game.
Let's do it.
We're going to stare deeply into each other's eyes, and the first person to blink or look away first has to read the first question. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
All right. Preparing myself.
Oh, I'm ready.
I love it. 3, 2, 1, go.
Dude, I could have stayed there all day.
I was impressed. Is this something you know you're good at?
No, not at all.
The
confidence. I was locked in there.
Yeah, when that moment. Well, I actually think that's a superpower when you can just lock in one-on-one and go deep. No one's gonna beat you in that. But
Thanks,
no,
bro.
I was very impressed. So
okay, so you're telling me you pick one card, and these ones right now that we're starting are at like the entry level.
Exactly.
Cool. And you're picking one for me or for you?
So I'm gonna pull out the card. I'm gonna read it to you. The level 1 questions will usually be me asking you questions what you think of me. The level 2 questions will be me just asking questions of you in general about you. And then the level 3 questions tend to be things that draw us together.
Love it.
So we'll just keep it free flowing, and I'm going to pull the first one.
Cool.
To pull a different one. That's not a good one. Here's a good one.
Okay, so we can do multiple?
Yeah, so the whole point.
So if I don't like a card, I can put it.
You can switch. This is really just meant as a framing device for us to get to know each other better.
Cool.
As a child, what do you think I wanted to be?
Ooh. Something. Ooh. I don't think it was a CEO. I would say something in investing or banking, but not a CEO. Maybe investment banker.
So,
and also how young of a child, like 5 or like in your youth when you're like a young teens.
Let's say age 10. Let's split the difference.
Okay.
Yeah.
10 years old.
Yeah.
Where are you from?
Originally Canada.
Oh,
yeah.
We're already getting closer.
Exactly.
Okay, so little Eric's in Canada. He's 10. What does he want to do? Teacher just came in for me. I think something with numbers, though, like knowing you. I would say something in numbers, but something that's kind of teaching.
I feel like you're just like putting this empathetic vibes out. You're like 10 years old, Canada. Like, what am I getting? What am I seeing? So there are really, I think, 2 different answers, and I think you got one of them.
Okay.
So the first answer is my parents wanted me more than anything to do something around numbers and math and in finance. Because my dad, we grew up super poor. My dad was initially a nuclear physicist. That's why we were in Canada. I grew up next, JT, to a nuclear power plant by the Chalk River. That's where my dad worked. And, you know,
Where is that?
It's like in the middle of nowhere. It's like in the wilderness in Ontario.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's like a town with like 1,000 people in it.
Wow.
And, you know, one day my mom was like, can we not raise our kid like irradiated with like nuclear waste all around him? Side effect, my friends say that explains a lot. So probably good I got out of there.
Cool.
And so my dad, when we moved to the States, he was trying to look for jobs and he found something in like insurance with numbers because he's really good at it. And so for him, he's like, this is the path to a good American stable livelihood. Go into finance, be really good at math, make lots of money. And then like I'm a kid, so obviously I care what my parents want. But the second part of that, and so that's the part that you correctly got. The second part of it was I actually really loved everything on the liberal arts creative side. Like I felt like I had to do the math part to make my parents proud and fulfill expectations. But I loved reading, I loved writing. Like in a perfect world, I would have loved, I didn't even know what being a creator was, but like talking and speaking, kind of what I get to do a little bit now with you right now. That's what I really wanted to do.
Cool.
But I never got to.
So did you have an experience where you would spend a lot of time doing the things your parents wanted you to do with math and numbers and all of that, but then on your own time, once you finished all of that in the day, you would go and do your own creative that actually you enjoyed?
Well, I didn't even have any of my own time because growing up, it was so much you are going to get into Harvard and go into investment banking. I didn't. The way I channeled all of these creative impulses was, funnily enough, through these really standard structured things that would also help me get into college. So for example, model Congress, mock trial, oratory, debate. That's what I ended up doing because I initially really liked it and it was a way to express that creative side of myself. But I also ended up being really good at it. And because it was helping me, get these points of external achievement and awards that would help me get into college, my parents ended up supporting it as well. And then even when I was in school, even when I graduated, it continued to always be the creative sides of yourself. Nah, you're not good at this. You don't get to do it. You can only sort of fulfill that need through more corporately acceptable things. So that's why before doing Carrot, I mean, GT, I worked as a consultant. I worked as a product manager. Both of those were jobs where I got to express that part of myself because you got to storytell, right?
Yeah.
As a product manager, your job is to think through what do we build and why and motivate people to do it. And there's a saying, right? If you want to teach people to build a boat, don't give them tools and instructions. Help them yearn for the endless immensity of the sea, right? That's what you can do. And so it's really only been in the past few years, even this past few months, I'm like, hey, like I have so much I want to share and tell. And I mentioned this earlier, but I was hugely inspired by what you do. You are so good at sharing yourself and your life with others that I was like, hey, maybe I could do this as well. That sort of was the genesis of what we're doing here today. So that's why I said you got a half right. You got part of what I thought I wanted to do, and then there's another whole area that I wanted to do outside of that.
I got the part right about like what you wanted to be so that you could fulfill what your parents were looking for, but not like what you genuinely like to the core wanted.
But now I'm trying to picture 10-year-old JT also in Canada.
No, LA.
In LA. That's right. And if I recall, your parents, you actually grew up somewhat in the industry
of
sports.
Yeah, and entertainment. Yeah. So parents are both Canadian. They were both born in Canada, but my family moved in 1988 to the US, to LA. So I was born in LA in 92. And yeah, my dad worked in hockey and my mom was a fitness instructor.
Very cool. So now I'm trying to picture 10-year-old you gathering vibes. I feel this is not a terribly unusual answer, but like given you used to play hockey, like you really wanted to be a professional athlete. That's going to be my initial guess.
That's absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Hockey was for sure the thing for me. I, like you, now looking back at my childhood, think that a part of that was wanting to have a close relationship with my dad and not necessarily prove him, but just like be close to him and like bond off of being an athlete. Yeah. But I also had like a massive creative side to me that was propelling me to do music. I did music growing up, piano, guitar, drums, bass, everything. That was a big part of my life. And then the actual creator stuff, I think, started when the internet came out and my brother showed me the internet. and I started getting on that. Those three things are kind of the things that like make up my childhood: sports, creative, and honestly, the internet were the things that I was the most interested in. But you're right. I wanted to be a pro hockey player.
Yeah. When you realized you had achieved this, how did that feel?
I achieved, so I think it's nuanced because I achieved being a pro at 20. Technically, I achieved being a pro at 16 because I moved from home at 15 to go play in Canada. And when you move from home, you're getting paid. So immediately it cancels your scholarship. So I can't go to college then because you're technically getting paid, which means you're technically a pro, which means you can't go and play college after you've already been a pro. So I already had scratched that itch at 16, but it didn't feel that way until I really turned like pro at 20. But I think for me, my dream was to play in the NHL, not to be a professional hockey player. And so I don't think that when I turned pro and played in the minors that I really felt like, oh, I like made it. I like scratched the itch that I wanted to of like the dream and the goal. When I went and played in Russia when I was 24, that was the equivalent of the NHL in Russia because I knew I wasn't going to make the NHL in the US. That kind of had dissipated. When I went to Russia and played in the equivalent of the NHL in Russia, that for me was when I actually like had that feeling of like, oh, all right, cool. Now I've hit the pinnacle that I've wanted to hit. I'm like in a league that's comparable. And the way that it felt for me was like, yeah, like this is awesome. Wow. And at the same time, it was like, but this isn't it. This isn't like what I want to do. This isn't like the next 10 years of my life or whatever, 20 years of my life. It was like, this is cool. This is like me hitting a thing a benchmark that I've wanted to hit. But I knew there was more. And that was what led me to being a creator.
Did you know, you said you hit the pinnacle of what you felt was your potential. And then you're like, hey, this isn't it. Were you expecting that? Or like, did you have inklings on that grind, on that way up, that the creative parts, the internet parts of yourself weren't totally getting their due? Or was this like, no, like you kind of always knew?
No, yeah, I did. To the first part, I 100% when I was a professional athlete knew that I was more destined to do something outside of being a pro athlete than be a pro athlete. Hockey is a super conservative and older school framework. There's not a lot of like creative self-expression. There's not a lot of it's pretty like stay within the lines. And for me, I was polar opposite, super creative, super different, super out there, always trying new things, always like open to different ideas. And I think that for me, the culture of hockey and the makeup of like what my day-to-day life wasn't it as soon as I knew that when I was 16. As soon as I moved away, I knew that.
Wow.
And so I think that for me, I was always pushing against that. Like I was like, I love the sport because I genuinely love the sport. I still to this day, I'm like, the sport's amazing. Love the sport, loved the players that I got to play with, and loved the like what my day-to-day entailed of me like pursuing a goal that I was physically like working on with myself. But I was pushing up against the fact that it was just so limiting of a lifestyle. Like in every way, financially, I wasn't making good money. Where I was living in low population cities in the US that I wasn't choosing. I was living away from family and friends. So my lifestyle just wasn't what I wanted it to be. And so those two things kind of pushed up against each other for a long time. And I think that as I got older and really got into pro and started getting into like 4th, 5th, 6th years of pro, it was just more and more clear of like, I love the game, but I don't love it enough anymore to like sacrifice all the other things that I actually want to be doing. And then that was why I decided I was done.
I almost feel like you've described like the duality of man and JT, right? There's the grinder. Hockey, it's hard work. You have to put in hours. You have to put your body on the line, and you have to play within the confines of a team, a certain structure. And I'm hearing this almost like poetic creative side because I'm cheating. I've seen what you've done since leaving hockey, and it's brilliant. And there's no way you wouldn't have been able to do that had you not had all this energy in you wanting to do something more. And I'm just picturing these two sides of you, like almost like yin yang wrestling. You put in your time on the hockey side, but you always knew, hey, like there's something more out there.
And let me even go, that's a perfect way to put it. And I don't prioritize one over the other. Like I would say I'm super emotional. I'm super into my feminine side, but I also am very into my masculine side. And I think hockey was very masculine side, but I don't think that it was balanced out at all with like, what I look at as like feminine side. It's like creative. It's like go with the flow. It's like just allowing to be the way that it is. It's like sitting with things rather than like trying to force things to happen. I think it's very group oriented rather than like individual oriented. And I think that those weren't being balanced out the way that they are now. And now I think that I have now leaving hockey and doing what I'm doing now, I think that I balance them out a lot. Like I'm a dude that wants to grind and go super hard.
Yeah, you want to win.
Yeah, and I'm competitive and I want to, and I do prioritize myself as an individual, but I also balance that a lot out with like chilling, taking care of myself, recovering, and being group oriented. And I don't think that the places that I was playing and the experience that I had as a player balanced that well. And so for me, I was like, it's not for me then.
I love that because in some ways I resonate with a lot of that. I went through a different grind of my own. Oh, investment banking, consulting, tech were similarly to you. I was like, hey, I've always wanted to do it. And this is so not feeding the creative parts of myself that I really need to express. And I think for me, I struggled for a long time on, you said something super interesting, right? You said you both have that masculine energy, but you also have the feminine part of yourself as well. And I think for me, I spent years like feeling awkwardly ashamed of the feminine parts of myself. Like, oh, like I like want to go and talk about things and be creative and care about mental health and all of these different sorts of things. And for a long time, there's this stupid story in my head, like, no, like that's not what I should be doing. And then over the past few years, I'm like, no, like I really care about this stuff. Like I'm going to do it. And so, but to just so explicitly be like, yeah, I have both masculine and feminine motivations. I'm like, dude, that's like a whole human being right over here.
Yeah. And well, I mean, everybody has masculine and feminine sides. Some people have more than the other. And I think that for me, bro, I have 4 sisters, my mom, we had a live-in nanny that was with us all the time, and my dad traveled a lot. So I was around women often.
Yeah.
And I don't say I was raised by women because my dad wasn't like absent, but I spent a lot of time with them because my dad traveled a lot for work. And so I think that I was just always like around feminine energy, and I love it. And I think that it's like a big part of like my makeup. But I don't think that it's the same for everybody. So I think a lot of the guys that I played with didn't have that same amount that they like felt wasn't balanced. And so for them, the environment of hockey was great, and it was like exactly what they needed, and it was perfect for them. And that's why I don't look at the sport in the way that it is of it being wrong or it needs to change and like it's not right, because right is super subjective.
Yes.
And what was right for me wasn't might not be right for other people, but what was right for me was not being in that environment or like switching it up because I needed to balance it out a little bit more. So I think a big part of it is self-awareness and knowing like, where are you at on that spectrum? Do you feel like you need more of, some people are super into their emotional side and feminine side and don't have any of their like go-getter and drive and like more intense side. And I think that it's knowing yourself and knowing like what you feel like you're being asked or requiring and then doing it.
I love that. I think we're ready for another question. Let's do level 2. Forget level 1.
Am I picking one of these, or
you got to pull out the card and just go ahead and ask me?
Cool.
I already feel like I've gone
one card, and we're like 35 minutes in.
That's how you know it's good vibes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. If you could have it your way, who would you be with? Where would you be? And what would you be doing?
That's a deep question. So I'm a big believer in choice and responsibility. And if you're at a certain place in your life, this is actually what you want to do, who you want to do it, where you want to be? Because if not, why wouldn't you just be doing those other things? And I think this is a big change for me over the past few years, where I used to be like, oh, cool, like I want to do this and I want to do X, Y, Z, but no, I can't. I'm forced to because of these circumstances or these people. And I've realized, like, absolutely, you can feel pressure, but at the end of the day, it's always a choice. And your choices show what are your prioritizations and principles. I spent years working at Facebook and Instagram, wanting to do my own startup, but just being like, no, but like, oh, the timing's not right. Like, I'm scared. And now I'm like, I was at the right place for me at the time, because had I been ready to quit and leave, I would have. The fact that I didn't is because I wasn't. And so the first way I answer this is I'm exactly where I need to be, because these are my own choices and prioritizations that have constructed my life to be this way. That's the first part of it. I think the second part of it is, well, if it does come down to your choice and responsibility, then the truer question becomes, what are your choices? You can do the things that you want, but can you want the things that you want? There's almost like another level. Sure, you can take action on your choices, but are you taking the choices that you want to take in a weird way? I think that's the second thing that I'm continuing to think through more. Like, I'm exactly where I want to be.
Give me an example of the second thing.
So for me, Carrot, one of the reasons why I'm so grateful to be doing it is because there's such a sense of freedom on doing something on your own with people you trust, where you're not just working for a larger entity. And interestingly enough, now Carrot has gone to the size where it's a larger entity in itself. And I actually don't even have that same freedom I did initially, because I have my own responsibilities to the company. Carrot has a mind of its own. And so I'm like, yes, I've made the choices and I feel great about where I am. And something I'm trying to figure out is, hey, the current setup, is that the right setup for me going forward? i.e., am I going to be the type of CEO who is super really excellent at like managing operations and managing people? Or I'm be the type of CEO that's more focused on strategy and relationships and communications? I think I'm figuring out exactly where I want to go next, and I'm not sure. So that's how I think about the role of choice. You get to choose, but choosing is actually one of the hardest things in itself, because choosing requires commitment. That requires you to be willing to give up on all the things you're not going to choose. And I think I'm trying to figure that out. Like, what are the things I'm willing to let go of? So
Dope.
yeah. What about
I love that. I think
you.
Yeah, I think if I could choose wherever I could be and who I would be with, it would be here and now, because I think the joy is in the mundane. Like, I think for me, when I was playing pro and was around all of these guys that are playing in the NHL making tens of millions of dollars, or when I would visit Los Angeles and would get invited to things where there would be A-list celebrities at them, and I would be mingling at these very like high level places, you just start to realize that a lot of people still aren't happy. Like, there's the hierarchy that we think when you get to that next level, it's going to bring more happiness and with material things or status. It's just so not true. And so for me, it's like, when I saw that and saw that people at a like outside looking in perspective are at a higher level of life than me, when I was around them and saw, oh fuck, these people are also not happy, it made me be like, wait a minute, where does the happiness come from then? If it doesn't come from that, and it doesn't come from reaching a new level of a societal level, where is it? And I think it really is like finding joy in like the daily mundane things that you do. That could be like for me, it could be a morning routine. It could be a walk. It could be having a conversation like this. Yeah. It could be having a morning meeting with my team. It could be eating lunch. It could be making content, but it's, can you find a way to enjoy that? Because then you look at it, and if you find joy in the mundane, then you look at it and you're like, I can find joy always. It's not an achievement. It's not a status thing. It's always with me. And so I would say exact same as you. What I would want to be doing is exactly what I'm doing right now.
I love it.
Because I'm able to find joy in that.
you're talking about like the beauty of small moments. And I love that too, because I used to think to myself, life isn't the small moments, life is the milestones. And that means you have to grind and be miserable because that's what you need to hit the milestones. And that's what you'll think back on. And I've realized since then, it's the same point as you every time. This is why I asked how you felt when you became that next level professional hockey player. You hit that milestone. And what you basically said was, yeah, I was really happy. And I was like, wait, I want more. And I've noticed for myself, upon every milestone that I hit, is just like, okay, what's next?
Mm-hmm.
And it is never ending. The void in me that desires more achievement and accomplishment can never be satisfied. And the only way to truly address it is to learn how to focus on the day to day. Like, if you're actually just happy with what you do on an ongoing basis, counterintuitively, that's actually going to be probably what also leads you to accomplish great things, because great things take time and they're really at your control. And if you're fixated on them, you're probably not going to get there. But yeah,
milestones dissipate. They come, they're dope for a minute. You have an experience of like, this is awesome. This is something I've wanted to hit for a long time. And then 2 weeks later or a month later or 3 months later, you're like back to the same place of what's next. And it's the same way that I look at content and approaching trying to go viral. Because when you have that moment, as someone that's experienced it, when you have that moment of like real virality, it's dope for a minute. It really is cool for a second. And then another couple days later, you're like, I need that again. I need it again. And if you flip it and you're like, I'm not doing things for that end goal, I'm doing things because I want to enjoy the process. And then that's a byproduct of it. The milestone is a byproduct of it. Then you can move forever. Then you're running off of unlimited energy because you're not looking at like this one moment being the thing that gives you it. You're looking at like you were just saying, you're looking at the small things and the minor details as the thing that actually supplies the energy. And then you can just move.
It reminds me, I had dinner with an entrepreneur named Alex Hormozy. And he said that everything that you should be doing needs to be sustainable if you were to do it for 100 years. Because if not, it's not going to work. And listening to you, I think my question for you is, so you're focused on ensuring that you feel good about yourself in those small moments, those day-to-day processes. In the next year, in the next 5 years, where do you think it's going to take you?
Probably even farther than I can imagine. I think it will. Like I try to set goals and then and then focus on the process. I don't look at every day and be like, we have to hit this number and these goals, because I like to allow there to be flexibility and deviation within that. And I just try to work on the small, minor details. And here's a great quote: simple things done savagely well. I try to keep things simple. I try to focus on the smaller things and do them to the best of my ability. And then I end up in places that I didn't even know I was going to be. For TikTok, as an example, like the consulting and stuff that I'm doing now, I had no clue I was going to be doing any of this. Yeah. I just really enjoyed the conversations I was having with people. I enjoyed teaching them how to do content. And I saw an intersection between the two of there being a need for people not understanding it. And I just focused on like really communicating to the one individual that I'm sitting across from how they need to create their content.
Right.
And then that led me to working with bigger companies and now global companies. And it was just focusing on the small, mundane.
It's like a natural evolution. I'm so curious because again, like X years ago, you were a literally professional hockey player, and now you're a storyteller that people follow on camera, which has developed into you also sharing that with how to do with others. You mentioned growing up with, strong feminine energy presences in your mind, right? With your mother and your sisters. Are they surprised by what you're doing now? Or they're just like, I always knew.
I don't think anybody's surprised by what I'm doing now. I think that they might be surprised at the speed that it's happened.
Yeah.
But bro, like when I was 16 and I left home and was living in Canada, I told my mom and my dad, like, there's a lot of up here that I don't like. There's a lot of this lifestyle that I don't enjoy. And so they knew that I balanced happiness of getting to play the game that I grew up loving with unhappiness of it not being the full spectrum of that I want to do. And so they've known that I was going to do something. I think they might be surprised at like where it's gone and the speed that it's happened at. But I think they've known who I authentically have been. Of you.
Also, age 16, you left home. Like, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
It's absurd, dude.
Like,
I actually made a whole video about it because I look at it. I left home at 15 to play my first year at 16. And the way it happens is you show up at an arena, you get an address from your coach, you meet your coach, hey, what's up? You get an address, you drive to that address, you knock on the door, you meet the people for the first time, and you say, show me to my room where I'm gonna live for the year. You don't know the people, you don't know who they are, you don't know the setup of the house, you don't know how many kids they have in the house, you don't know if they're rooming other players, you know nothing. You show up and they show you to your room, and that's your room for the year. This is a country away from your family. Damn. And I'm coming from Scottsdale, Arizona, where like I grew up having a lot and like grew up very blessed and very lucky. Yeah. And now I just moved away to another country into a farm town with a random family that I know nothing about. And for me, and you're just trying to go after this goal of like playing as a pro. So you put everything aside, all of your like wants of like a lifestyle to pursue this goal. And for me, I look back at it now and I'm like, that was absolutely absurd. I would not recommend it to a majority of people. I have a little brother now that's 13. I would not recommend it for him. If he wanted to go, I'd be like, no. I'd probably tell him not to.
Why is that? So your little brother here,
here's
why
I
want to do it.
And here's why. The pros of it are you get to really learn to be an adult and a professional at a young age. You have to take care of yourself. You have to like really get streamlined on the way you operate as a business person and as an athlete. And the way that and the things that you learn at that age, I think have a benefit for you in life that a lot of people don't get to experience being a pro that early. The cons of it, if you are somebody that is very close to your family and is close to your friend group, is you miss out on a lot of those parts of your life. I didn't go to high school with my friends. I didn't go to college with my friends. I wasn't around my family for a lot of my high school years. And I think that like the emotional development of that and like the life experience that you miss out on, if you are somebody that is like me, that is really close to your family, I think the benefit is staying close to your family and being close to them proximity wise. So I look at it as like, unless my brother is absolutely gung ho about like moving and like determined, I would recommend him to stay because I think that the pros outweigh the cons. Other kids might be the right thing for them to do.
Different people, different things, but for you.
Bro, majority of the people on my team were coming from farm towns. Family lived within a couple of hours so they could drive. They're in the same country and they grew up with it being like the thing to do. Like everybody, when you're a hockey player in Canada, which is the majority of kids, they move to another city when they're 15, 16 to go pursue their career as pro. I grew up with like kids skateboarding, dudes that are in debate, or dudes that are like doing creative things, or guys that are playing football on the football team. None of them are moving away from home. I didn't see one kid moving away from other than hockey. And so it wasn't just like it wasn't a thing that happened in my friend group. And so for me, it was very like counterculture to do that. For
like
me,
number
there was pros
one,
and cons.
That means you really had to want it. For
sure.
It's like a completely different universe.
Yeah.
And two, it's like, you're telling me it's like you had to grow up fast. And there's literally been studies done on what happens when you have to grow up fast. Like you're put into circumstances where you got to develop that independence and fend for yourself early. And like two interesting things happen. Like one is like, you become like super gritty and like good at navigating yourself. But the second thing, and I think this is a little what you're alluding to, right? Where you're like, hey, I'm like not with my family right now. And like, I'm a kid, I'm not going through these experiences, is the habits that sometimes people develop when they have to grow up fast become more focused on practicality and the short-term optimization. And they lose a little bit sometimes of that flexibility.
For sure.
Because when you're a kid, think about it, you get to be as creative as you want because you're protected, you're safe. When you're out there in the streets, you don't get to be like, oh, I want to like write poetry.
Yep. Well, the way I look at it is like the more in a place of survival you are, the more rigid and unflexible you are.
Exactly.
The more you're in a place of safety, the more flexible, fluid, moving, like the more you can be in that kind of a way. And I think when you move away from your family, especially as a young age, where you aren't emotionally ready for that,
It's terrifying.
you get put in a place of survival. So I think that I lived in a place of like, but again, I think that I handled it nicely because I had so much safety built into me from being around my mom and my sisters and
Like
stuff growing up.
emotional, psychological resilience.
Exactly. Growing up, that I think it was, I don't get me wrong, I still think that it was challenging for me. But I think that I was able to navigate it because of my upbringing and where I was at when I went there. Yeah. But I still think, like, for sure, I lived from 16 to 25 in somewhat of a place of survival because in pro athletics, you're pretty much taught that if you don't perform, you're cut or you are traded or you're out.
Gone.
And so when that happens, you're just like, you're typically in a place of like, I got to be on all the time and there's no flexibility with that, which means survival, which means lack of safety. I think if I were to go back and be a coach, the one thing that I would instill would be safety.
Yeah.
Because I think you can move. What you want to talk about creativity, when you're not in a state of survival and you're in a state of safety, you will be in awe of how much creativity just moves through you. And I think that now being older and seeing a lot of players, athletes that are coming up with a different level of just like their own emotional safety, just how creative they are. I think that's why sports are becoming more creative. And so I would navigate it differently now. But I think, for me, it had impacts, both good and challenging. But like I say in this video that I made, I wouldn't trade anything. If I did it again, I would do it the same way.
Absolutely.
Because all of the that happened with me leaving, all of the challenges that came with it have led me to being the way that I am today.
You know.
And so I'm so fine with it. Would do it again. Would do it all over. I wouldn't change a single thing.
I love that. Both those concepts, I think, similarly for me, to eventually do something more creative like Carrot, I had to develop a lot of psychological safety that I didn't really have growing up. Whereas I was, hey, if you don't do a good job, because think about where my parents came from. If you don't do a good job, you're fucked. You don't eat. And I think a lot of that was instilled into me. And yeah, I think I used to beat myself up. Like, why aren't I doing something creative? And then I realized, well, because I'm deep down terrified that like, if I leave this job, I will never get one ever again. And I will be on the streets, which like rationally doesn't make sense. And it took me until like age 28 to be like, no, okay, now I have the emotional perspective to be like, no, I'll be okay. And that I'll be okay unlocked a lot. Well, now I can just do because like, I'll be okay. And yeah, I think the second thing, I've also have been learning how to hold both of those thoughts at the same time. Like, hey, yeah, there's a lot of like, woo, stuff that went on, but like, hey, this is what made me who I am today.
Hell yeah. That's some real growth. Like that's, being able to balance multiple emotions and like sit with them at the same time is not an easy thing to do and is a real sign of you being like emotionally resilient.
Can I ask, what's the most cognitive dissonance you've ever felt? Where you're like, I'm doing this thing, but I want to do this thing. And how did you sit with that?
Probably hockey, bro. Like, I think I experienced that a lot. I think when I was playing, even just wanting to play at a higher level, like sitting and being like, I know that I can be at that level. I know that I have the skill set to be there, but I just like can't get there right now. And the dissonance between me trying to do that and me like having that aspiration of like an internal knowing that I should be there. And then the reality of like, I'm not there and I'm trying my hardest, but I can't get there. Yeah. That for me it's very relatable to right now of like, I even think that as a creator, you go through ebbs and flows of actually like being creative and putting out a bunch of stuff to going to where you're more internal and you actually need to like process and digest. And for me as a dude that always wants to be putting shit out, always wants to be going and doing more, the moments where I don't have that, I have a massive like internal where I'm sitting with like, fuck, I have to like let this process and sit with it, and I can't force it because I just can't put out things that feel forced. But I also have this aspiration of like, I would be posting 7 times a day every day forever if I could.
Yeah.
And I sit with it. I just fucking sit with it. And I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
we're going to let this move. This is the way that I look at everything, is every single thing is happening for you. There's nothing good, bad, ugly, beautiful that is happening that is not happening for you. And so I approach everything with that kind of a mindset. So even the shit that sucks, which there's inevitably things that suck, even things that suck, I look at it as like, I don't consciously know right now why this is happening, but I know that there's something in here that is actually happening for me. So I have to just sit with it and let it fucking play out. And that can suck, but it's the process.
And I love too, the moment you described, you were like, in hockey, I'm putting everything into this and I'm not where I'd be. I think every human being goes through that really scary moment when they're like, I really want this and I'm working really hard and the outcome is not exactly what I want.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the answer is what you just said. You literally can't focus too much on the outcome because it's impossible to control. You can only focus on the process and believe it'll get you with where you need to be.
Mm-hmm. And you want to talk about emotions. That's why I think emotional intelligence and being able to process and sit with emotions is such a superpower that is so massively underrepresented and talked about, because the emotions you experience when you are having that experience that you just mentioned, the emotions you experience when you're doing the work, doing everything that you can, and still not where you want to be, and you're doing everything that you can, but you're not there. Yeah. The emotions that are in that, you have to just sit with, and that sucks. It doesn't feel good.
Worst
You're like, it
feeling
sucks.
in the world.
But most people won't go through that process because they can't sit with those emotions. So as soon as they get to that door where it's like, all right, these emotions have to hit me and I need to sit with this, and on the other side of them is me actually getting what I want, they go, oh, fuck this, I'm out. Let's bounce and do something else. And that's where the ability to sit through challenging emotions is a skill set that people need to talk about more, and just needs to be celebrated more, because that is the vast majority of what I am teaching when I'm working with people. The moment from starting an account as a creator to actually being successful and getting the recognition you deserve, within those 2 walls, there is a fuck ton of unpleasant feelings. There's a lot of self-doubt. There's a lot of just, the algorithm is not working on my behalf. My community is not there yet. I have to keep putting in these reps and I'm not getting the return that I want. That's none of that is good feelings, you know? And if you look at those feelings as being things that you don't want, then you're not going to stand the test of time as a creator. And so I look at it as like, if you're willing to feel all of that and willing to go through that, that is really when you actually get the that you want.
Your superpower.
Exactly. And it's really when you can build. And all of the people that I think have had a journey of building a massive audience have gone through that experience where there's doubt and there's resistance and you're just not getting what you want. And it's a challenge and it should be celebrated.
I love that. Let's do a level 3. I think we're ready. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Remind me of level 3. Level 3 is me about me.
It's going to be questions that are really going to be looking at the moments we're having right now and the ties between us.
Cool.
We're going to do different level 3.
Okay.
This is a good one.
Okay.
What can we create together?
Sick. What can we create together? So I mean, like, is this about to be like a business brainstorm? Because
could be anything. I'll let you take it where you were on it first, and I'll share my thoughts. Yeah.
So, because I think a lot of this has been more like abstract, our conversation, and a little more like theoretical, I would say what can we create together would be probably just probably an environment where business has a foundation of well-being, and where businesses and the people that run them genuinely care about the people on their team,
Yeah.
the customers, and what the impact of their business is on society at large.
Yeah.
And I think that you share a lot of that with us, of you're a founder who actually does give a fuck.
Yeah.
And so I would say what can we create together would be a better environment for
I
all.
like that. Two thoughts. I think my first thought is, yeah, because I remember when I was starting Carrot and I had no clue what to do. One of the biggest moments I ever had, one of my mentors ran in my head a very successful financial technology startup that I just like so looked up to. And I thought this guy was like the shit. And I remember getting dinner with him one day and he was like, why haven't you started a company? And I like hemmed and hawed and eventually gets emotional, right? It's like, I'm scared. And why am I scared? Oh, because every time when I grew up and I did something that didn't work out, my parents would just be like, yo, you fucking suck, right? And then he told me that like, you know, his dad left when he was a kid and that he's been doing a lot of therapy and he is sad a lot of the times and he still is a fucking badass. I was just like, whoa, this person I admire so much can be sad and also had a lot of problems growing up. That actually made me feel like, oh, cool, like maybe I can do this too.
Totally.
And I think like a lot of what you said, man, you're talking about like, again, I just keep going back to the moment. You're like, yeah, I'm like working super hard and this isn't where I want it to be. Like that is a fucking terrifying thought to sit with and to sit there and acknowledge, be like, yep. And the biggest thing that might help you is knowing how to tolerate bad emotions and shit. I think it's something I would have watched when I was younger and been like, okay, cool, maybe I can do this now. Because someone I think is killing it is expressing this to me as well. So,
yeah,
I love that. And second, I was going to say, and this is my secret ulterior motive behind all of this, I'm building a deeper relationship with you. I used to think that relationships are very binarized and specific. Like, hey, here's a friend because we play video games together. Here's a friend because we do business together. Here's a friend because our families grew up next to each other. When I've realized it's all arbitrary, it all blends together. We got to know each other initially from a business context. And we're building a personal relationship too. I've noticed over the past couple of years now in LA, a lot of people who I first got to know strictly in a business sense, who of course I still have a business relationship with them. It's like, oh, but like I actually know them as human beings and that's nice. And so for me, just getting to go this through with you, it's nice. I do feel like I know you a little bit better.
I agree. I love that. For me, relationships are the foundation of everything. I think all of my business success that I'm having, all of my well-being stems from the relationships in my life.
Same.
And when I think about the times in my life where I wasn't happy or wasn't fulfilled, and I look at the relationships, it's a pretty good indication of why I wasn't happy or fulfilled or feeling the way that I wanted to feel. And so I sentiment the same way that you just said that, of meet people off of being good people and vibing with them on a human level, and then the business will come. The business stems from that. But if you lead with it being transactional and just like you said, I know them because we game together and they're going to help me get to the next level of gaming or in business. Like they have X, Y, and Z product and we can work together, and you end up losing the enjoyment of that relationship. And I think that you end up losing a lot of the real business success that you actually could potentially have.
For me, it's been that evolution of the first time I ever met you, I didn't know you, right? And so I'm meeting you because I think you're great. I think you're great because of X, Y, Z things you've accomplished. And when I get to know you better, then it shifts. You're not great because you accomplished great things. You accomplished great things because you're great.
Love that.
And now I get to know that you as a person are great, that's when it begins to shift from, oh, like JT's done like XYZ things, whatever, to like, well, of course he did because he's awesome. And this is how he thinks about things. And this is how he lives his life. And now I can appreciate that as a human while also appreciating things you've accomplished, but also knowing that even if those things disappear, you're still great and you're going to accomplish great things. And I think that's for me that shift when I'm meeting somebody for the first time and I know nothing about them other than what they've done to, oh, okay, but now I actually know them as a person.
I love that, bro. Yeah. It sounds like your definition of success is not an achievement or something that people have hit as a benchmark, whereas so many people have what they define as success of selling a company or having X amount of followers or things like that. And the challenge with that is if that's what you define as success and you're measuring up against that, then you look at everybody transactionally and all of the relationships become a ladder or a stepping stone towards you reaching your goal, rather than when you look at it your way and you're like, I'm not measuring success off of something that is a status symbol or of some sort of financial metric. And you're just like, my definition of success is a fucking good person that works hard, cares about others, tries, like whatever your definition is. Then you meet people and you'll be surprised at how many more successful people you meet. And that's when I really think the most beneficial business comes out of it.
I love that. That's how I learned to reconcile, because I'm like, oh, the metric, like I want to do well for myself. I want others to do well. And I look at those things. And then I sat down one day and I was like sort of what we've talked about, this is underlying theme. Like the metrics will lead you to a bad place because they're outside your control. And then it's like, well, how do you reconcile the like, okay, I care, but there's gotta be something more. And that's why do you care about this metric? It's imperfect and correlated, but not completely the same measurement of how you're trying to think of a person. And maybe, okay, you can appreciate the metric as that imperfect signal, but never let it distract you from the thing it's actually trying to measure, which is the person. And then if you can learn to understand and appreciate the person for who they are, then the metrics actually become way less important, right? It's that concept of, oh no, like you accomplish XYZ things, these metrics, because you're great. But that means, yeah, if XYZ things change or whatever, but I have an understanding of the underlying sense of who you are.
Yeah.
And that's how I kind of reconcile them.
Love that.
I can honor the cool things you've done without being tied to them versus, well, it's just because you're you and more will come because you are you.
Dude, it's so true. I look at metrics and data for me it's information. It's not the whole truth.
Yeah.
And when you prioritize it as like the whole truth, that's just when you get pulled into areas that you don't want to be in, and then you lose the enjoyment of it. And then that's when people get burned out or they don't have healthy relationships. It's so, dude, all of the shit that we're doing as a company with teaching people how to do content is rooted in wellness. Yeah. Because when you look at achieving and numbers and that benchmark as your end goal, you do things that deprioritize your enjoyment and your own well-being of the process. And I think when you flip it and you look at virality or company success or financials are the byproduct of us prioritizing the small things and the enjoyment of those small things, everything starts to fucking work. You start to enjoy it, and what ends up happening, like we were talking about at the very beginning of this conversation, when you do sell or when you do hit that benchmark, get 1 million followers, whatever it is, when you do hit that, it's not, this is the moment that I've been waiting for that's going to finally bring me the joy that I've been looking for. It's, yeah, this happened. This is amazing. This is a really cool accomplishment, but this isn't the reason why we did this. The reason why we did this was to enjoy the process to get here. And now this is a cool moment for us. Let's celebrate it and let's enjoy it. But this isn't what I've been expecting, this like release of joy or whatever the emotion is that you're looking for when you finally get there. Yeah. And just the whole map to there gets different.
In a way, you're saying, hey, I'm going to help people become great creators because I'm going to help them become great human beings. And then just sharing what they do naturally is going to be what also helps them succeed as creators.
Love that.
Let's do one more.
All right, cool.
This time it's your turn. Level 3.
Level 3, here we go. What would be the perfect gift for me?
It's a hard question because I feel like now I've gotten to know you better. Now I actually want to come up with a good gift, right? Like if you don't like know somebody that well at all.
I already know yours.
Oh, damn. All right, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first.
It's like easy for me. Boom.
I know yours. For you, because you've been giving me a lot of these invites, I know that you are an avid pickleball player. And I think that the gift that I would be getting for you would be an upgrade on whatever pickleball setup you have right now. Rackets, balls that you use, all of that.
I love that. I think this helps me.
Is that something that you would be needing too? Like, or do you have really nice pickleball equipment? Or is that something that you're like, oh, that actually would have been a good gift if you were to open that on Christmas Day?
I think for me, the thought that you've thought of that is meaningful. And for me, the greater, even better gift would be let's play some time.
Cool.
I'm not even kidding.
Cool. We do need to do that.
Yeah. And I think, gosh, what would be the perfect gift for you? I think in my head, gifts come down to something the other person would appreciate or need. And so when I talk with you, I see someone very at peace with himself. So I think the broader question I have is, are there things in life you feel like you need right now or that you're trying to figure out? Because then I want to think through, how can I help with that?
Dude, great question. Broader things in life that I feel like I need help with. Not really. I feel like I'm a very in tune with myself and self-aware individual.
Yeah, you are.
At times to a fault. And I think that even though I go through challenges with myself, I just think I always have some sort of fucking understanding that it's all good and that it's like, again, that it's happening for me. And so I don't worry or I don't stress about those times. I do in those times I am stressed and I do go through like emotional challenges, but I just think I don't know. I think I was instilled from my mom, my grandma, and my upbringing. I think I was instilled with some sort of internal knowing that I got it, that it's okay.
Self-belief.
Exactly. So to answer your question, there's nothing that comes to mind that I'm like, oh, I really could use help with that.
So I think two thoughts. Number one, I think in terms of things that I know you like, probably something around coffee.
Love that.
Because I know you
That's
enjoy
a
it.
great
You mentioned to me, and I've also seen your stories where you're like, got my coffee.
That's a great one.
But second, I'll continue to think about it more. It's like the classic framing is, what do you get the man who has everything? And it turns out that everything wasn't like cars and trinkets and toys. Everything was a self-belief in himself. And that's something I want to think more about.
That's awesome.
What would I get the man who has everything?
You just said it, bro. Coffee.
Yeah.
Well, one, I think everything is subjective. So like, I wouldn't say that I have everything in the sense of like a material status, but I literally do feel like I have everything that I want.
You have belief in yourself. And I think a lot of people don't have that, or they're just spending their whole lives trying to get to it, or shitting on people who do, because they're scared that they don't. So it's amazing. JT, thank you so much for making time today.
This was great.
Give me a hug, man.